Let's face it, we are absolutely swimming in data. But what does any of it really mean? I mean, how do you get from a massive spreadsheet full of numbers to a single decision that could, change an entire business? Well, that is the magic of data storytelling. And today, we're gonna break down how you can turn all that raw information into stories that don't just inform, but actually persuade and inspire.
All right, here's the roadmap for today. We're going to start with the big challenge of raw data, then unlock the incredible power of story as the solution. We'll get into the 3 essential ingredients for any great data story, learn how to build a narrative that hooks people, pick the perfect visuals, and wrap it all up with the super important topic of ethics. Sound good? Let's dive in. So, first things first, let's talk about the fundamental challenge. We're always hearing that we live in an age of information, but honestly, it's more like an age of data. And believe me, there's a huge difference. So how do we build that bridge from having this sea of raw facts to having the clarity to make a really confident decision?
At its most basic level, data is just the raw material. It's a bunch of individual facts, statistics, the building blocks. Picture a giant spreadsheet, right? Every single cell is technically correct. Every number is accurate. But that spreadsheet all by itself doesn't tell you why something happened or, more importantly, what you should do about it. It's just there.
Exactly. Without context or some kind of structure, data is really just noise. It's like 1,000 different facts all shouting for your attention at once. So that brings us to the big question we're tackling today. How do we cut through all that noise, find the actual signal, and make it mean something?
The answer, and this might surprise you, isn't some brand new piece of tech. Nope, it's something that is deeply, fundamentally human. It's a tool we have been using for thousands of years. Story. This is the ancient key our brains are literally hardwired to use to make sense of the world.
I love this quote because it just hits the nail on the head. A data set showing your quarterly sales figures, well, that is a complex reality. A story takes that mess of complexity and gives it a shape, a form that our minds can actually grab onto, process, and, most importantly, remember.
So what's the secret sauce here? Why are stories just so incredibly effective? Well, for starters, they generate real interest. A story about why customer engagement is dropping is way more compelling than just seeing a percentage point fall. That, in turn, captures our attention. And because stories give us context, the why behind the what, they communicate meaning in a way that raw numbers just can't. And when you put all that together, a good story connects with us emotionally, and that's what inspires us to actually do something.
Okay, so we're all on board that storytelling is the answer, but how do we actually build a great data story? Well, the good news is it's not some kind of mysterious art that only a few people can master. It's a craft, and it's built on a really powerful framework of 3 core ingredients.
Ingredient number 1, and this is the obvious one, is the data itself. This is the bedrock, the foundation of your entire story. It has to be accurate, it has to be reliable, and it has to be relevant. And let's be really clear here. Without solid data, you're not telling a data story. You're just telling a story. You're basically writing fiction.
Next up, we have the narrative. Think of this as the connective tissue, the storyline that you weave through all your data points. The narrative is what provides that crucial context. It answers that all-important "so what" question, and it takes your audience on a journey from, say, an initial problem to a final, powerful insight.
And our third and final ingredient is the visuals. Let's stick with our building analogy. If data is the foundation and narrative is the structure, then the visuals are how you paint the scene. These are your charts, your graphs, your diagrams that make abstract concepts feel concrete. They let your audience see the patterns and trends you're talking about in an instant.
And here it is, the key takeaway. It's the skillful blend of these 3 things, the solid data, the compelling narrative, and the clear visuals that comes together to create a truly great data story. This combo is what doesn't just present information, but actually helps influence decisions and drive real change. Okay, so let's zoom in on that second ingredient for a second, the narrative. It's one thing to say, go tell a story, but how do you actually structure one? Well, luckily, we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. We can actually borrow a classic framework that storytellers have been using for centuries.
This is Freytag's pyramid, and it's a classic for a reason. Let's walk through it with an example. Imagine we're analyzing website traffic. Your introduction sets the scene. Okay, team, our goal for Q3 was to boost user engagement by 15%. Then the rising action builds the tension. We saw traffic go up, which is great, but our bounce rate also shot up, which is not so great. We dug in and found out one specific marketing campaign was driving all that new traffic, but maybe the wrong kind of traffic. The climax, this is your aha moment. The data shows that 80% of new users from that campaign left within 10 seconds. So the campaign, while driving traffic, was actually hurting our core engagement goals. Now, the falling action explains what that means. So our marketing spend was basically inefficient and it was hurting the site's overall health. Finally, the conclusion is your call to action. So my recommendation is to pause this campaign immediately and shift that budget to channels that we know attract our target users. See? You just turned a data dump into a journey with a clear destination.
All right, let's talk visuals. This is where your story really comes to life. But listen, this is not just about making things look pretty or picking a chart you like. This is about being a good craftsperson and choosing the absolute right tool for the job you're trying to do. And here it is, your practical cheat sheet. The kind of story your data is telling should point you directly to the right visual. So if your narrative is about change over time, like say monthly revenue, nothing beats a line graph for clarity. But if you're comparing different categories, like sales in different regions, a bar chart makes that comparison pop instantly. And if you're showing how a whole is broken down into parts, like market share, a pie chart is your best friend. Remember, the visual always serves the narrative, never the other way around.
So, what does this process look like from start to finish? Well, you can really boil it down to 4 simple steps. First, you collect. Get your data, clean it up, make sure that foundation is rock solid. Second, you visualize. Pick the right chart for the job to represent that data clearly. Third, and this is the really critical step, you observe. You just step back, look at your visual, and find the story. What are the patterns, the outliers, the relationships? What is this thing really telling you? And finally, you narrate. You weave those observations into a simple, clear story that explains what you found. And that brings us to our final section, which is arguably the most important one of all. Because data storytelling is a tool of influence, it comes with a really profound responsibility to use that power ethically and with total integrity.
It's really as simple as that. When you tell a story with data, you are actively shaping how people see a situation and what decisions they're going to make based on it. And misleading your audience, whether you mean to or not, can have some very real and sometimes very serious consequences. This responsibility really rests on 3 pillars. First up is accuracy. This means more than just having the right numbers. It means not cherry-picking data to fit your argument, or say, manipulating a chart's axis to make a trend look more dramatic than it is. Second, transparency. You've got to be honest about where your data came from, how you analyzed it, and what its limitations are. If you only had a small sample size, you need to say so. Trust is built on being transparent. And third, respect for privacy. If your data involves real people, you have a deep ethical duty to protect their identities and any sensitive information. Always. So, that brings us to the end of our journey today. We've seen that data storytelling is so much more than just making pretty charts. It's the craft of building a bridge from raw, complicated information to real human understanding and ultimately to decisive action. The data's all around us. It's just waiting for someone to give it a voice. So the only question left is, what story will you tell? Thanks for joining me.